everybody. Welcome to our webinar, which is organized by Evidence Prime, a producer of GradePro, a tool for creating healthcare guidelines and recommendations. My name is Claudia Kepa, and I'm a community manager at Evidence Prime. And today we will host our special guest from Cochrane, Rebecca Hall, who is a product owner of Revman, and two of our team members from GradePro, Justyna and Bart. So let's start. So today's topic is the power of evidence-based medicine with Revman and GradePro integration. So using this opportunity, I would like to tell you that Evidence Prime has achieved a new milestone last week, and we received a Service Organizational Control to Type 2 certification, SOC 2. This certification demonstrates our multi-year efforts and investments in security and compliance, ensuring that our tools, Laser AI and GradePro, are the most secure option for customers in the industry. In the next webinar, which will take place next month, we will talk a bit more about it. So subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media to stay up to date. So today we will talk about a summary of findings tables in Revman managed by GradePro. We will also show how to import data directly from Revman Web to GradePro and how to import data from Revman Web to GradePro without a Cochrane account. And today we have a huge pleasure to welcome our speaker, Rebecca Hall. She is the product owner of Revman in Cochrane, and the last year she has focused on supporting the Revman team in implementing the new study-centric workflow in Revman Web to improve how authors manage data in Cochrane reviews. This workflow also enables sharing of data in the Cochrane library and between tools. Rebecca will tell us more about her work today. The second speaker is Justyna Lityńska. She's the product manager at Evidence Prime, and she provides support to users of GradePro and takes part in the constant improvements of its features. Bart Diesel, the product manager at Evidence Prime, is also with us to answer any questions related to the topic. Thank you very much, and I give the floor to you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So today I will walk you through how you can save time and improve the process of creating summary of findings tables in GradePro by using the integration with Revman Web. Since this integration is only available to Cochrane authors writing Cochrane reviews, I will also walk you through the process we're developing and working on for when you export data out of Revman or using the newly launched data package that you will be able to access from the Cochrane library. So, what are the key reasons that this integration will really help you out? First of all, as a user of Revman, this integration gives you access to GradePro's summary of findings templates, which is now a standard for Cochrane reviews. And it also gives you the ability to use data in Revman to populate your summary of findings table to save you time. The integration also allows making sure that any changes that you make to the table in GradePro is then directly reflected in the summary of findings table in Revman. And at a later point, if you decide to update your analysis, so you have different data in Revman, you can actually push this new data into your summary of findings table in GradePro just with a few clicks. So hopefully this new process will help you by saving time and making the process easier to work with summary of findings tables. So before you can create tables in GradePro from RevMan, there's 2 steps of preparation. So first of all, you need to make sure that the integration is available as a feature. And at the moment, you need to contact support@cochrane.org to do this. But since we've been now testing this feature for quite a while, we're soon going to make it available by default for all Cochrane reviews. The second part of the preparation is that you need to make sure that your GradePro account is linked up with your Cochrane account. So first of all, you need to have a Cochrane account and you need to have a GradePro account. And when you log into GradePro, you'll be able to go to the account settings and link it with your Cochrane account. We have resources available that can guide you through this process in more detail, so it should be fairly easy to do. And so when all of the preparation is done, what you can do in RevMan is that if you go to the table section and you go to summary of findings, there's now a new option called adding a table using GradePro GDT. And when you click on that, you'll be able to select from all of the analysis group which analysis group you want to create a summary of findings table. So for this often corresponds to a comparison. So as you can see in the example here, all of these are comparisons. And so you just select one of the comparisons and click import, and that will generate a table that has the data from RevMan. You can also see that if you make any edits here in GradePro, there's a symbol here in the right top corner saying that all of the changes are synced. And what that means is that any edits that you make in GradePro will also be reflected in the table in RevMan, as you can see in the right lower corner. So this is an automatic synchronization from GradePro to RevMan. But at some points of your process of writing a review, or even if you're updating a review, you're quite likely to make changes to your data and to the analysis section. And so then you want to make sure that your summary of findings table is also up to date. And what you do then is that you can go to the table in RevMan, you can find the action menu for the table, and you click edit and update. And this will make sure that your data is again synced, and so you have the most up-to-date information in your summary of findings table. Of course, you may then need to review some of the work that you did in GradePro, like assessing the, upgrading the grade assessments. So before I move on, I wanted to just look into a bit more in detail what data is actually linked up between RevMan and GradePro. So this on the top, you can see an expansion of an analysis in RevMan. So walking these through one by one, we have in the top the name of the comparison or analysis group. And here, GradePro will actually give a really good try at trying to identify your intervention, the population, and also the outcome based on the analysis name. And so this is information that you can later change in GradePro, but it will give you a pretty good estimation of what your table should be called and what those fields are. And apart from that, we're pulling in data on the number of studies, the participants. You can see the risk ratio here is feeding into the relative effect in the GradePro table, and you can also see that it's the estimate, so the summary estimate, the number 7 here, feeds into the anticipated absolute effects. So this is basically the data that is linked up between the two tools. So hopefully this process can really simplify your ways of working with summary of findings tables in RefMan and GradePro. So there are some cases when the integration is not the ideal option. And so if you're working on reviews that are not Cochrane reviews, you will not have this option. So then you need something else. And also when using data from Cochrane reviews to create tables in GradePro, at the moment, the Cochrane library has two different types of data for reviews. It's the RevMan 5 file, but now also a new data package. And so GradePro has had an option to create tables from RevMan 5 format for quite some time, but they're now developing a way to import from our new data package. So that's really exciting, and we'll talk more about it later. And the third option is that the integration is focused on intervention reviews. So if you're working on other types of reviews, this will not be the option that works best for you. So, but what do we do in this scenario when you have these use cases? Well, then we are making sure that there's a more manual workflow that allows you to import data and create a table. So this means that you can go to RefMan, to the dashboard, select a version, hit export, and then select to export data. And so you'd need to have the study data, study references, and analysis. And then you can just click generate the export package, and it will give you a zipped folder with the data that you need to create this off, basically. And the other option is if you want to use data from the Cochrane library, there is an option if you have a license or somehow have access to the content of the Cochrane reviews. You will be able to download statistical data, and that now includes a data package that will replace the RevMan 5 format. And an import from this format is also coming soon in GradePro. So that was it from me. I will gladly answer your questions after Justina has walked through the part and the user journey in more detail. So over to you, Justina.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And yes, for now we don't have any questions in the Q&A section. I would like to remind you to use the button to ask any questions. In this way, everybody can see the questions, and they can you can also upvote the questions you would like to have answered first. So Justina, passing on to you.
Thank you very much, Claudia, and thanks again, Rebecca, for the introduction. So what you saw, what you have just seen on Rebecca's presentation, I will show you live in GradePro and in RevMan. And I wanted to start with like the most basic aspect of it. So for RevMan and the GradePro integration, do you need a GradePro account? The answer is yes, but if you don't have it yet, you can get it very simply with just your Cochrane account. When you go to the GradePro page and go into our login page, you see the option to create an account, but you also see the option to log in with Cochrane. If you have a Cochrane account, you can use this option to generate an account very easily for yourself. So you just press the button. You have to log in with your existing Cochrane account. So let me just log in with my account created for this opportunity, and just log in. You will be asked if you consent to sharing data, because of course this is necessary for the accounts to cooperate. And once you accept, you will be informed that there is no GradePro account for this address because, as I said, I don't have a GradePro account yet. But there is a very easy option to just click on create an account, and GradePro will create account for you matched with your existing Cochrane account. You, of course, you have to accept our terms of use, and there is also the option to subscribe for the newsletter that Claudia already mentioned. I personally recommend that because, well, this is not a commercial newsletter that comes every single day and nags you to just go around and do things you don't have time for. We send it very we send it in a way that we are sure that you are informed of the most important GradePro features, our latest lab webinars, and very interesting information. So you can also check it and then create an account. And that's basically it. I already have a GradePro account now. I am welcomed, of course, with the tutorials we have, but that's basically it. And I can already then go to Revman and start working on my projects, which will be integrated with GradePro. You can see that also there will be the need to confirm my email address. I will receive an email message that will that I just had to click into a link to finalize the process. But already now all is set, and I can go to Revman. That's for the scenario when you don't have an existing GradePro account. But of course, it can also be the case that you already have a Cochrane account and you already have a GradePro account. They're just not connected together. In this case, what you need to do is click that you already have an account, log in with Cochrane. It will now log me in with the account I already used. So let me just open it in incognito to ensure that I will have a fresh start. So if I do have an existing account, I will also be asked to log in. And they say that there is the GradePro sees that there is an existing account. It's just not connected yet. To confirm the connection, I have to enter my GradePro account here. So I already have an existing Cochrane account to which I have just logged in. Now the corresponding GradePro account with the same email address has been found, and I just need to enter my GradePro password. And again, the accounts have been connected. The Cochrane workspace appeared in my GradePro account, which will be used for the purpose of Revman integration, and that means everything is done. There is also the option that Rebecca was showing in her slides. So once I'm logged in, I can go to my user menu, the account settings, and here it shows that I am linked to Cochrane account. If I'm not linked, there will be the option to link, and you will go through basically the same process. So just logging into your Cochrane account, and this way connecting the accounts together. So those are those two ways. You can log in, you can connect the accounts from within the account. You can connect the accounts by logging in. And if you don't have an account, by logging in with Cochrane, a GradePro account will be created for you. So that's the first step. I already have a GradePro account. What happens next? If I have an existing review, an existing project in Cochrane, I have to make sure that it's integrated with GradePro. As Rebecca mentioned, you have to contact Cochrane support for that purpose. But once I see GradePro integration here, that means I can start. And it is really very simple. I need to have, of course, at least one analysis group with analysis inside that I can transport to GradePro, of course. But once I have that, I can simply go to the summary of findings table section. And as Rebecca was showing, add the table using GradePro GDT. If I have more than one, I will be asked which of the analysis I want to use, and click import. And that's basically it. The table has been created. I can see that my data is here. All I have to do is assess the certainty of evidence, which I can do here in this cell. There is also the option, if I know that some people find it a bit more clear when doing that. This, what you see, is the summary of findings format, which, as Rebecca mentioned, is the standard Cochrane format, and that's also the format it will be transported with to RevMat. But just for the moment of assessing the certainty of evidence, you can switch the format to Grade Evidence Profile, which shows each certainty of evidence criterion as a separate cell. So you can choose in which format you prefer to do the certainty assessment. I will now just do the first study to show you. So we have to choose the study design and select the criteria. So let's just say this is a perfect outcome and everything is okay with it, and the certainty of evidence is high, and that's it. Once I go back to RevMan, I may need to refresh to see this particular table, to see it loaded automatically. And here I see it. There's the table. There's the outcome I graded as high, and all the data that I have in this particular table. Sorry for that. The Zoom controls are unfortunately in the way, and I can close this cell. As Rebecca mentioned, once I am ready to continue work, I can simply click on the Edit Table option, and I will go back to this very table. It's exactly the way I left it. All the data are the same. The grading is the same, and I can continue my work. There is also the case where I receive new data, when some data is updated. So let's say that in the first analysis, I found that there is one more study I can add, and I'm just now completing it with mock data to show you what will happen. And now coming back to tables. And as Rebecca mentioned, if I have new data that I want to push into GradePro, I can't just use Edit Table option. I have to use the Edit and Update option. And I am informed that, well, if I made some changes, especially to the numbers, then these may be overwritten. So that's why it's important to know that you are going through with this. And the numbers changed. I already have 3 studies instead of just 2, and the numbers are a bit different than they were. And what's useful is that the non-statistical data remain the same. So if the grading is not changed, then it is preserved. If the new study changed the grading a bit, then I can just edit it. I can edit it here, no problem. And these changes will be reflected in the table as well. So you can see right now I have 3 RCTs here, and all the changes have been reflected. So this is mostly what this looks like. As you can see, I can access all the tables I did here. They are marked with the GradePro GDT. They are managed. by GradePro GDT, and that's how I can edit those tables and add information to them. I can also, if there is such a need, I can add an outcome manually here. So if for some reason some data cannot be synchronized, I can add outcome manually, and it will be saved in the table. So this is the chain of events that happens when you have the Revman web integration with Cochrane. But there is also the second way of integrating, which Rebecca mentioned, and that is the integration for CSV files. So as it was shown before, you can download the files from your Revman project or from the Cochrane library, and once you have them, you can go to your GradePro account, and there you have the option to import a project. When you click on it, you see the option to import from a variety of files, but most importantly, from Revman web CSV files. So I have to select a file from my computer. I have a few of such files prepared here. And once I do, I see the question that can be imported into GradePro, and just selecting it and clicking import. This was some minor connection. Unfortunately, as it was mentioned, it is still a fresh feature. So I'm showing it to you on our closed environment with the Zoom going on. The connection sometimes it goes a bit confused. But most importantly, I have a project with question inside. I can see the data. They were imported, and similarly to what I was showing you just a second ago with Revman web integration, I can assess the certainty of evidence here. I can change the view so I can see it as a summary of findings table, and I can use any of the GradePro features on the side. So for example, I can go on and create an evidence decision table based on, and the recommendation based on these data, or I can add outcomes. This integration is also available on other levels, not only on the project level. So as you have just seen, I imported a whole project, a whole review, but I can import analysis groups or questions into an existing project. So there is also the option to import questions. And once I use it, I can select a project as I did before, and I can select which of the questions I want to import, and just the question will be imported into this existing project, and similarly, into an existing table, I can import an outcome from an existing project. I will be shown the list of all the outcomes or analysis in that particular project. I can select just a few of them and import them into this table, and here they are. So those are the options to import the CSV files. What's very important is that the CSV files I'm taking it from are the ones that I downloaded from Cochrane sources, so from the sources that Rebecca was showing. Once I download them, it's very important that I don't change them, because they are designed specifically to incorporate the data seamlessly into GradePro, and the machinery of Revman and machinery of GradePro are talking to each other through these files. So if we edit the files, we somehow unfortunately disrupt this conversation and they don't understand each other quite clearly. So you cannot edit those files, and of course only the files from sources that Rebecca was showing are available for this integration. And this is basically it. So to sum up, there is the option to create GradePro account with existing Cochrane account, and you can do that in just a few clicks. There is the option to integrate RevMan Web and GradePro through this online integration, from the online synchronization between projects, and this way creating tables very easily. And finally, there is the option to upload CSV files into GradePro and edit them from there. Those are the options we have. The online integration is available, well, as long as it is enabled by the Cochrane team, by the RevMan team, and integrating CSV files is currently at the public testing stage. So if you are interested in testing this out after this webinar, you can contact us and we will enable it for you. And now I believe I've seen a lot of questions appearing in the chat and in the Q&A section in the meanwhile. So I will perhaps now give a floor to Claudia and to manage the question and answer session. But I will, of course, be available to answering those questions and perhaps showing my screen some more if there are more detailed questions.
Thank you, Justina. Thank you. This was a great demonstration. We have a lot of questions in the chat, which are already being answered by Bart and Kirsty. And also we have some questions in the question and answers section. So one of the questions, integration in RevMan, is it free? What about non-Cochrane mode in RevMan? Does it work for that also?
I'm happy to answer that, if that's okay.
Thank you.
So the integration is only available for Cochrane reviews. If you want to use it with non-Cochrane reviews, you need to use the export workflow. So then you can use the workflow that Justina showed last. And in terms of RevMan, you need a license to use RevMan Web for non-Cochrane reviews. So I can send a link where you can find more information about this. But there are also discounts available for Cochrane authors, academics, and it's also free in low and middle income countries. So I'm going to pop the link that has information about RevMan Web licenses in the chat. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. Another question. Is the download statistical data available for anyone, or do you need to have a Cochrane account?
So I'll take that one too. So the data package in the Cochrane library is available in the same way as the RepMan 5 file is currently, and that's if you have full access to the review. And Cochrane currently has 2 open access policies. So for each review, it may either be gold open access, and that means that anyone will get immediate access to the review. And we also have green open access, and that means that there will be free access to the full review 12 months after publication. So newer reviews, you might not be able to get the data package. But with that said, Cochrane has a commitment to go fully open access by 2025. And at that point, the data package would also be available for anyone for all reviews.
Perfect, thank you, Rebecca.
I will, sorry for chiming in, Claudia. I will also add to that if you are afraid that you have to pay, that you have to pay double from the GradePro, and this is all available to all willing users. So open access, I think, is what both sides try to strive towards as much as it is, of course, possible. So yes, to have the options to use GradePro for the CSV import, for example, this is available to all users.
Thank you. Somebody's asking also, can we import RevMan file to Grade until May, because later we cannot use RevMan?
I think this one you need to answer. I can answer and say that Cochrane reviews can no longer use RevMan 5 because the checkout is disabled. But non-Cochrane authors that have RevMan 5 downloaded will be able to work in RevMan as usual. And so if you have RevMan 5 files, I think as long as GradePro maintains the functionality to import RevMan 5 files, you'll be able to do that as well. But with the caveat that RevMan 5 is no longer supported, so it's only for those who already have RevMan 5 on their computers, because as of Tuesday this week, actually, it's no longer available for download because we are focusing fully on RevMan Web.
Yes, and I can add to that we will keep this functionality for some time, of course, and with time we will sunset. It's not decided yet when, but for now the functionality to import RevMan RM5 files will stay in GradePro.
Okay, thank you. So there is a question in Q&A. Is Google Chrome the recommended browser for the RevMan GradePro integration, same as RevMan Online?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, in general, we recommend Google Chrome for GradePro, but it is also possible to use it with other browsers. It's not that it's forbidden, of course. It's just recommended, which means, well, it works for the best, but we will assist users with all browsers, of course.
And it's the same with RevMan Web.
Perfect, thank you. Another question. Why would we sometimes need the CS files downloaded from RevMan Web if all the data is already available in RevMan Web and we integrate both softwares as it was shown today?
So that is a good question. I think it's basically because the integration is only really available between for Cochrane reviews. So if you're not working on a Cochrane review, we still want to make sure that you can transfer data from RevMan into GradePro. So that's why we have the two options.
Perfect, thank you. Another question: if CSV files are used to create SOAP, how do we move the SOAP to RevMan?
So thanks for that question. That's really helpful. This is a user journey that we are working on how to support from the RevMan end. And we are looking into different ways of doing it, one which would be copying and pasting the table, and the other importing. But we are basically doing work to support this use case. But we wanted to promote this feature already because a lot of people aren't actually needing to take it back to RevMan. So we don't want to keep the feature from you.
Perfect.
And
we have.
Sorry because I wasn't sure if Bart was adding anything or not, but there's also for all tables created in GradePro, there's always, and there has been and still is the option to export them into PDF files or other text files if they need to be presented. Also, even an interactive self table under a separate link or embeddable in the website. So if there is a need to disseminate, it can be fulfilled in many different ways.
And I would also like to add that in GradePro, you will find a section which is called Cochrane, and there is a space for your evidence tables, which were created by the direct synchronization with Revman Web. But if you, for example, work on your guidelines and you did your meta-analysis with Revman, you will probably want to use the CSV export, because this way you are able to download, so upload data to GradePro, to any GradePro project, not only this selected number. So those tables that you have in Cochrane space, right? Because in GradePro, this Cochrane space is only reserved for tables which are for Cochrane reviews purpose, right? If you do a guidelines, you are probably doing them somewhere else in GradePro. That's why the CSV will be very useful if you did your meta-analysis and now you will move on with your work process inside GradePro in your guideline projects.
Yeah, so to add just visually to what Bart said, when you log into a GradePro account which is integrated with Cochrane, you will see two workspaces. The Cochrane, which is, as Bart mentioned, this is for storing the projects which were created with the direct Revman Web integration. And there's also a personal workspace which every GradePro user has, where any kind of project can be created. And additionally, if you belong to an organization that has a separate subscription, you will see additional tabs with well, where other projects are stored. So CSV can be imported into any.
Perfect. I have another question in the chat. If my institution has a subscription to Cochrane Library and database of systematic reviews, does that give us access to Revman Online too, or is the Revman subscription separate?
They are separate, so they're two different licenses.
Okay, so following to a next question. Thank you for the presentation of the new opportunities. My question is CSV file are easily exported and imported on the program? Is it possible to integrate it with RStudio?
So part of the reason, I'll answer this. Part of the reason that we implemented this data package is so that it could be used by more tools. So it is in a format that could be imported into R. So it's really great to see that you're asking for it, and I'm looking forward to hear people trying to use it and see how that works for you. But yes.
Perfect. And next question, is the annual subscription fee for Revman Web has limitation on the number of non-Cochrane reviews?
The licenses are per seat, so it's you can use create how many reviews you like, but it's per the person using the license. So if you want to be several persons collaborating on a review, you will need 2 licenses, or if your institution has a license, you can of course collaborate within that institution.
Thank you. We have some more questions. Is it possible to import the self table afterwards to Revman Web when working on a non-Cochrane review?
So I think we already responded to this, but it's good with repetition. But basically, we're working on this user journey and how we can support that in the best way. At the moment, you can export it as HTML, but we are working on making sure that you can then either import or paste it into Revman. So we'll keep you posted on that.
It's true, you're right. We've been saying this already. Another question I have, can I edit the title of the table in GradePro?
Yes, so as Rebecca mentioned, once you are using the integration, GradePro is, let me just share my screen. GradePro is trying to predict what the title might be, but if this prediction is not entirely correct for some reason, you can use the edit option, which is on the right hand side, and this way you can change either the Pico question itself, which then translates to the title of the table, or you can switch to manual mode of editing the table title and then edit it yourself. So let's say for here to add a population, and once I save it and go to Revman, it will be shown here. So yep, now it was synced. So it is possible.
Thank you.
It's also worth to mention, if I may, it's also worth to mention how exactly those data are pulled. So obviously we are taking some of those data from Revman to create those evidence tables. So we are taking as much data as possible to be able to fill as much fields in evidence tables for you. But primarily, of course, we are filling main data that creates the table, so names of outcomes and numbers that are taken from your analysis, and those will be also things which will be also updating whenever you try to pull data from Revman, right? So things that are coming from Revman, like numbers from analysis, will be updated by pulling the data from Revman. However, things which are exclusively added in GradePro, like certainty of evidence, values, and all of this assessment will stay and will not be overwritten when you re-upload those data, because they are added in GradePro and sent back to Revman.
Thank you, Bart. Another question for Justyna. I am interested in using GradePro to do the certainty of the evidence. Is GradePro available online to use virtually?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, any person can create a GradePro account and use it. Once you integrate it with Cochrane, you will have those two spaces. In personal workspace, you can conduct any projects you want, and even without a Cochrane account, you can just create a GradePro account by entering your email address and the password of your choice, and that's basically it. And once you are using GradePro, you can also offer. So there's the option of working online, as you mentioned. So you just go to the page and you work, and this work is synchronized. So whichever machine or computer you open it on, it will be the same on all devices, and also the same for all your coworkers. But there is the option also to work offline. So we know that sometimes you are traveling by plane or in an environment where the connection is not stable. So you can continue the work offline then, provided that you have used GradePro previously on this device. And then the progress will be synchronized once you regain a stable connection with the internet. So it's possible to use it this way for free.
Perfect. Then another question for Rebecca. You mentioned options for free access to Revman Web. I think you said Cochrane Authors. Can you elaborate on the pathways to free access?
So to get a free access to Revman Web, it's for low and middle income countries. For Cochrane Authors, if you're working in an academic setting, you will be able to get discounts, and you can read about those discounts on the page that I shared. But you can also contact support@cochrane.org and you got specific answers to your questions.
And there is another question. Can we use the data of RevMan 5.4 in RevMan Web? If yes, then kindly elaborate on it.
So you cannot directly use the data from a RevMan 5 review in RevMan Web, but we have a conversion service that allows you to basically create this data package. So the data package that we've been talking about today from the RevMan 5 file. So that means that you can extract the relevant data from the RevMan 5 file, and that allows you to both create the tables in GradePro, but it also allows you to import or paste data into RevMan Web, depending on what type of data it is.
Thank you. I have another question in the chat. Can I use GradePro outside of RevMan integration?
Absolutely. You can just go to gradepro.org and work inside GradePro. The integration is for your convenience, so data can flow the same way as you can use RevMan without GradePro. You can also use GradePro without RevMan. So far we had for many years we had ways with integration with RevMan Web Now, with RevMan 5.4 and previous version before that. So this like continuous effort to support users who use both of those tools. However, those are like two separate tools, so you can use them completely separately or independently.
Perfect. We still have some time, so there are 2 new questions which appeared. Where can we find an appropriate tutorial on how to use RevMan and GradePro?
Justyna, would you like to take a note?
Yes. So first of all, there's this webinar, as you know, is being recorded, and it will be shown. It will be made available to you afterwards, so you can watch it and use it as a tutorial. Also, we have articles in our knowledge base regarding the connection and the very detailed descriptions of how each connection works, where each piece of data is taken from, and how the integration works in detail. And I think this will be also we make it our custom that after each webinar we also make available an article which summarizes the questions asked in the webinar, and we also make available some materials. So I think they will be also sent with the materials after the webinar. So we'll have but also pasted the link to our section for Cochrane authors in our knowledge base, which will be expanded very soon. And so, those materials are available.
Yes, and I see, Rebecca, you are typing an answer already. Hosn, sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, is doing a training for a student on May 30th and asking if it is possible to download at the time and use desktop RevMan. He announced his workshop in January.
That will no longer be possible because the download option of RevMan 5 is not available anymore. But there is a really simple way to use RevMan Web that you can use for workshops, which doesn't require a license. So I will send a link to the RevMan Web knowledge base article that describes this, and you can look into using that instead. And also what we've seen for training sessions is that it's a lot easier to work in RevMan Web because you just access it in the browser. So there's no need for the participants to download the software. So I'll find that.
Thank you. And we will also send a follow-up email with all the links and all the materials to everybody who registered for the webinar together with the video. There is a question to repeat the integration of RevMan with GradePro.
I think this recording will be sent after the session, so and the link will be included, correct, Claudia? So
yes.
Anyone who wants to see it once again can look at the video.
Or watch it at your own pace. We also, when we make the videos available, they are always made available with subtitles, so that it's easier to follow, and you can watch it on your own pace. And so this will be, I think, a better answer to that question.
Yeah,
Exactly.
all our video sessions, and they are done monthly. So there are monthly webinars are available on our Evidence Prime YouTube channel. And if any of my colleagues can paste the link to the YouTube channel once again, please be invited to join us and watch all the other sessions. We are doing them for several months now, so there is a lot of interesting materials there.
Thank you a lot, and also do not forget to subscribe for our newsletter. I'm checking if there is some more questions. Cheryl is asking if he has a student just starting using RevMan, should he stop and rather download GradePro?
So the tools are very different and do different things. It depends on what your student needs to do. If you want to create analysis, meta-analysis, then you need to use RevMan, and you should be using RevMan Web. But if you want to create summary of findings tables or evidence tables, then you should be using GradePro.
Yeah, and to develop recommendations afterwards. So as Rebecca mentioned, and let's maybe reiterate it, the two products are complementary. They are not exclusive. You can use one of them, or you can use both in a more complete process, but you don't have to choose between them, because they are offering different features. So, and both are described quite thoroughly in the respective knowledge bases, and there are a lot of tutorials. So I think following this webinar and other materials that will be shown will prove that you can use both and not choose.
Thank you for all the comments. Joanne is also asking if there are written summaries of the past webinars. The recordings are available on YouTube, and some of the webinars, they also have some blog entries, but we will for sure create more materials in the knowledge base and in our blog as well. Another question, would you be able to recommend a tutorial in adding non-comparative studies in GradePro?
A tutorial. So I'm not sure if there is a tutorial. We probably would need to create one. I think that there may be something on, there is another YouTube channel which is run by Cochrane Canada Center. So they have some materials on GradePro, and there may be some materials about this particular case. So
so we are approaching the end of the webinar, and here I will share with you also our social media. You can follow us, or if you have any questions, any remaining questions, you can write us an email as well. And yeah, I would like to thank you all for your presentations and for answering all the questions. And thank you to all the participants for your active participation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.